The Barbary Power Wars, America's first war on terror. The Barbary Power Wars were the first wars officially declared against America following our victory in the War for Independence. Muslim terrorists from 5 different Islamic nations were making indiscriminate attacks against the property and interest of what they claimed to be the Christian nations. These Muslim terrorists, called Barbary, that is, barbaric pirate for most Americans, attacked American civilian and commercial merchant ships wherever they found them, seizing the cargo and enslaving the crew. In 1784, Congress dispatched 3 diplomats, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson, to negotiate with these Muslim nations and end the unprovoked attacks. They found this to be a difficult task, for the attacking of ships and the taking of Christians by Muslims had been a widespread problem for centuries. The Muslims found they could finance their wars and terror operations by enslaving and then selling captured seamen. The Muslims took 1.25 captive slaves in that period. Because this was such a widespread and reoccurring problem, other Christian nations formed standing organizations to raise money to purchase enslaved seamen. As Jefferson explained, there is here an order of priests called the Mathuns, the object of whose institution is the begging of alms for the redemption of captives. About 18 months ago, they redeemed 300, which cost them about 1,500 apiece. They have agents residing in the Barbary states, who are constantly employed in searching and contracting for the captives of their nation, and they redeem at a lower price than any other people can. Ransoming Americans was no less expensive, and therefore was a very profitable trade for the Muslim terrorists. Additionally, the Muslim nations would sign treaties with the attacked nations, including America, providing that for an annual tribute, perhaps $1 million a year, along with the gift of several frigates, that they would perhaps refrain from further attacks. By 1795, such peace payments to Muslim terrorists comprised a full 16% of the entire federal budget. Among the many treaties signed with Muslim nations during this period was the famous 1797 Treaty with Tripoli. It was one of the many treaties in which each country officially recognized the religion of the other in an attempt to prevent further escalations into a holy war such as had existed between Christians and Muslims in the Middle Ages. The Muslims considered that all Christian nations were like those of the Crusades, when Christians fought Muslims simply because they were Muslims. In fact, many founding fathers talked about how different America as a Christian nation was from the European Christian nations, and the American treaties, including the Treaty of Tripoli, made this very point. Significantly, secularists regularly cite one clause from that treaty in devious attempts to make it appear that the founding fathers empathetically avowed that America was not a Christian nation. They thus quote from that treaty the line declaring, "The government of the United States is in no sense founded on the Christian religion." This declaration certainly seems to be straightforward, until you discover that the critics only use part of the quote. Notice what the full, unedited clause states. As the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslims, and as America has never entered into any war or act of hostility against any Muslim nation, it is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from religious opinion shall ever produce any interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. This clause from the Treaty of Tripoli simply affirms that America was not one of the European Christian nations with an inherent hostility towards Muslims, and that America had never been part of arbitrary wars against Muslims such as had characterized the Crusades. This clause definitely does not deny or undermine America's strong Christian heritage, unless you wrongfully place a period in the middle of the sentence, as secularist critics do. When Thomas Jefferson became president in 1801, he decided that it was time to take military action to end the 2-decade-old unprovoked Muslim terrorist attack against Americans. Using the brand new American Navy to transport the U.S. Marines overseas, General William Eaton took the American military and proceeded to the same region in the world where Americans are still being attacked today. He then led a successful 5-year campaign to free captured Americans and crush Muslim terrorist forces. Tripoli, now called Libya, finally capitulated and signed a treaty on America's terms in 1805, thus ending their aggressions, at least for a while. By the way, it was from the Marines' role in the First War on Terror from 1801 to 1805 that the U.S. Marines derived part of the opening line of their hymn from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Shortly after President James Madison took office, he became engulfed in the War of 1812. With America preoccupied in the Second War against the British, Algerian Muslim terrorists again began attacking Americans. But upon concluding the war with the British, President James Madison dispatched the American military and warships against 3 Muslim nations. America, with the assistance of Great Britain and the Netherlands, subdued those Muslim nations and brought them to the peace table, where they freed all the enslaved Christians.